Welcome to Hey, Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On tonight's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point, our breakdown of everything happening in the Division I college tennis world, of course. Here on Wednesday nights, we break down the Division I men's action, but of course, as I led last night's show with, it's just worth noting. This weekend, it's our last weekend of regular season cross-court casts. Our last weekend of regular season Big 12, SEC, ACC action. Next week, I'm headed to Waco, where Chris and I will be on the call for the 2025 Big 12 Championship event. And then before you know it, the NCAA tournament will be upon us. That's right, folks. Postseason play, it's on the horizon. Every match that much more important. Of course, going into last weekend, we pointed out some potential elimination matches in regard to seeding, and of course, those matches delivered over the course of another thrilling weekend of Division I men's college tennis action. Of course, joining me on tonight's podcast to both help break everything down that we learned from the last week of play and, of course, preview one of the final weeks of the 2025 regular season. It's the man who's joined me every week on this show, a returning champion to this show, a man whose website is firing, a man you all know best as the forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR. He is a lean, mean Michigan Wolverine, and now more than ever, he is the college tennis professor. It's Chris Halioris joining us for another lesson here today. Chris, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. I'll tell you what, I'm starting to feel some postseason energy. I think it has finally dawned upon me where we are on the calendar. Has it dawned upon you, my friend? How are you doing tonight?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely dawned on me this week. Hit up left and right, from the coaches immediately. And I'm sure it's dawned on you because what I want to know is starting this weekend now, given where you're going to be traveling, which happened more frequently, sneaking out of your parents' basement or sneaking out of Coach Woodson's?
50-50. I mean, ask me at the end of May. No, I'm gonna be spending a lot of time in Waco. I'm very much looking forward to it. You know what's fun for me is I get two different diet experiences. This is so stupid, but I'm just gonna lead with this anyways. Starting, I believe Saturday is Passover, so I'm gonna be there for Passover, which means less tacos. Just I'm not gonna violate.
No velvet tacos for Passover.
Not week one, but I get to make up for it. Experience number two when you're going to be there with me, and I know
Oh,
we'll
the
be
Bernie
going every night.
velvet tacos
Yeah,
every night.
so it's probably actually discipline by me that it's fortunate discipline that I'll get to avoid that in week one. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to getting down to Waco. Very much looking forward to just what's such a fun 6-week sprint. I mean, the whole season feels like a sprint, but Chris, I actually started here last night with Jay. I want to start here with you as well. It is fascinating that now, look, we're over the 3-quarter mark. You can do some reflecting upon your preseason takes heading into this season. And look, there were some late season additions, as we've learned to expect. Makes preseason coverage that much more difficult. But what's so fascinating to me, Chris, is yes, like Wake Forest is undefeated. They're 32 now. Obviously, we'll talk about it. TCU has one loss on the season to that Wake Forest team. Another loss to Texas, of course. But other than that, they've looked really good along the way. They made up for that loss to Texas as well. And just, again, undefeated, defending champs. We know that about them. We know Texas is really good as well. What's so fascinating to me is that, again, 4 months into this season, that 4 through 10 pool, I'll be generous and include Cal in there, I got no idea how to sort them out. I still think there's a lot of parity between 11 and 17, 18. I have narrowed down my top 16 pool, but how to organize between them? Like, we got 4 months of results. I got nothing for you, my friend.
Yeah, it's wide open, and I don't, I think we put the same group of teams, obviously, in that 4 through 10 bucket, but I think it's just as likely that whoever you want to call 16 can beat four. Like, I mean, it's not that, even though we do have that same grouping in that top half of that, 4 to 10, 10 to 6, 11 to 16, I don't think there's more separation, I think, at this point between the top three and that next group than there is between the two groups that follow. Just because there's just no separation there. Everybody can beat everybody, and we've seen it happen.
Case in point, I just think about that San Diego Baylor match from earlier in the season, and it's like, why won't we see that 5 times play out in the round of 16 weekend, maybe north of 10 times play out in the regional final weekend? It's going to be really fun. Like, to your point, there's so much depth, so much parity. As you mentioned, it kind of spot on in that 4 through 16 range. Again, I think I'm willing to give the top three the benefit of the doubt. I also think we need to see how conference championships play out. We need to see what sort of form, who's healthy, what everything looks like for all these top teams going into that home stretch as well, because certainly we haven't seen Vivez for TCU in a while. The first time we see him in a while, he's in a boot, obviously, in the photo they released on Twitter today. Like, when was the last time we saw Dostanic suit up for Wake Forest? When was the last time we saw Ojakar suit up for Texas? Like, there are still questions. It's what makes this job so fascinating, is that you try to read through some of those results. You try to project moving forward. That's why I'm very fortunate. I'm out of the prediction business. But, yeah, good luck to you as you try
And
to make
the funny
predictions.
thing is, about everything you just mentioned, you called out issues with the top three teams. It's not really an issue for Wake. Steph's healthy. He's playing. He'll
Yeah.
be there. Like, they're fine. He doesn't need to play for them. He's out playing tournaments. The other two teams, on the other hand, they do have questions about health and whether they are healthy, and whether, even if they have those guys in the lineup, how good they'll be. No questions about Wake. So it just makes the needle lean even more towards that undefeated team.
It's going to be fascinating to watch play out. Again, we are very much looking forward to being along for the ride. We will try to go live as frequently as possible here to cover things like, obviously, the weekly developments, but conference championships. I do feel like I talked about this with Jay on the men's side. Do we have a signature upset of this season so far? I mean, I guess Pacific delivered another fun upset here this weekend. We can talk
Golly.
about that a little bit later. But signature upset where I guess you did have UCF over Ohio
Yeah.
State at the indoors. That's probably number one on the list. But other than that, UCF over Arizona, the
UCF
kickoff weekend.
Arizona, edition one,
Yeah.
before we kind of had the hint that, yeah, UCF, before they go and then beat Ohio State and then beat Arizona again, it was a little more, reasonable for those, even though the Ohio State was still shocking and indoors. I mean, yeah, no, I'd still say that was the biggest one to me to start. UCF beating Arizona kickoff weekend was the winner, and then UCF Ohio State's, no, to me, is right there as well.
I guess the most notable thing, I know A&M lost the match to Arkansas, but like in terms of a paradigm shifting top team going down, that is what has been lacking, I suppose, since kickoff weekend or the earliest round of the National Indoor Final site. And so, certainly, again, we're monitoring for it. There's going to be a lot of top teams in action as conference tournaments get underway. Certainly, regular season weekend for a bunch of big conferences as well. Before we dwell upon that, though, let's reflect upon everything we have learned over the last week of play, Chris. And let's start with the postseason in mind. There were a bunch of teams who made significant top 16 moves. And I want you all to know the professor, before we started today's show, his exact words were, Alex, I promised you I'd do my homework. I have. So that is good news for all of you tuning in here tonight. Chris, I'm going to need you to pull out the calculator here, whether it's what if or just the machinations of your brain. I got 5 teams on the radar that I want to discuss from the past weekend in terms of making significant top 16 moves. You tell me which one mattered most. Is it A, Mississippi State, who earned 6-1 win over Texas A&M and a 5-2 win over Auburn? Was it B, South Carolina, 4-3 win over Tennessee, 4-0 over Georgia? Was it C, Baylor, a big 4-0 victory for the Bears over UCF? Was it Duke, who has fallen out of the top 16 of the ITA rankings, 4-3 loss to Cal, 4-0 to Stanford? Or Texas A&M, 0-2 weekend for them. I mentioned the loss to Mississippi State. They're also knocked out 4-1 by Texas. Kind of feels like they're in jeopardy of falling out of that top 16 for the first time. Chris, of those 5 teams I mentioned, and we can get to all of them eventually, but which one had the most impactful weekend?
Uh, I think it'd be you have obvious. I think one to the upside and one to the down. So we'll start with the down. Obviously, Duke to the downside. That hurt, right? I think you said, "Hey, I think they go 1-1." I said 0-2, and then no Cooper Williams just made it really, really tough, and it was a very tight match with Cal. That really hurt the top 16 hosting possibilities for them. On the upside, the other teams you talked about, I think, had good upsides. By far, the most impactful was South Carolina. They were out of the top 16. We talked about this last week. I said, look, I think the winner of Mississippi State and A&M's a lock. I think the loser is probably good, but I won't. But they're not a lock yet. And I thought that would be it. I was confident then. I'm still confident, even though they're not very far out, that it's just not going to be Tennessee as the extra SEC team if there's going to be another one to get into a hosting spot. But South Carolina's now jumped them, and they're in there. And I think that was by far the biggest impact. And when you consider on top of that, that they're hosting the SEC tournament and likely to have a very good tournament, or at least not a bad one, it's going to be much tougher for a lower ranked team to jump up and bite them at home for the SEC tournament. If they're going to go down, they're probably making it to the round that, by seed perspective, they should. They've got a legit shot here at positioning themselves to hold that host spot.
Yeah, you look at the 2 SEC teams with the 2-0 weekend, South Carolina and Mississippi State, all season long. We have talked about the pack that is grouped together at the SEC. There are about, we'll say 5 to 6 teams, top 16 quality, particularly any given weekend. And of that pack, we knew they were all chasing Texas. Texas 12-0. They, too, by the way, get a good win over A&M. We're going to talk about them in a second. But of that group, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Florida, Oklahoma, Georgia, all of those teams between 3 and 5 losses in conference play. Mississippi State's 9-3. South Carolina's 10-3. Those are the 2 teams at the top of the pack. And you look at the resume now for Mississippi State, they've picked up wins over Oklahoma, part of that pack, over South Carolina 4-3. They beat Florida 5-2. They get a win over A&M this weekend. They beat Tennessee 4-3 earlier in the season. This team's 17-4, and they don't have any serious blemishes on their resume. Yeah, tough loss at Kentucky, but the best version of Kentucky can still hang with a lot of really good teams. This was a really big weekend for Mississippi State heading into postseason play. They needed one like this. At home against A&M, what should be a pick-a match, the key should be, well, who's the home team? And they were the home team, and they protected their home courts very well in that 6-1 victory. Obviously, on the South Carolina side, how insignificant, I should say, they felt through the first month and a half of the season, and how well they have righted the ship. Again, 16-6 overall. They too wins over Texas A&M, win over Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia. Again, they get a good win earlier in SEC play as well. Good wins earlier in SEC play over Alabama and Auburn. This team's found its form. These 2 teams have played their way into top 16 shape after slow starts, and in SEC where there has been a bunch of parity. So I do think those would be the 2 I would point out most, because that was one of our biggest storylines all season long, is would this SEC beat itself up to the point where they would box themselves out of top 16 seeds? And I defer to you here. Barring, is it first round Well, I mean, again, each of these teams still have matches to go. For South Carolina, they've got a Florida match coming up this weekend. That is no guarantee. You look for Mississippi State still on the schedule here this weekend, although they're a little higher up at 11 in the rankings. But this weekend they've got at Mississippi, at Alabama. Certainly, again, not a cakewalk. If both go undefeated to end the regular season, are they locks?
Mississippi State, yes.
Okay.
I don't know that anybody is a lock after that because there's just too many things that can happen. If you're in that 14, 15, 16, there are just teams that can just, you know, run the gamut in their conference tournament and bite you. And so that you really have to watch out for that. It doesn't have to be you when you get to conference tournament time, it doesn't have to be you blowing it. Now, a loss in most cases doesn't hurt anybody tremendously. You get knocked a little. What's more damaging is when a team that's, 17, 18, 19 goes and makes the conference final in a really good conference. Then all of a sudden they find themselves in front of you. So now you're starting to look the problem in that range, though, right now is the Ivy doesn't have one. So Harvard's going to have a hard time. They're going to have a hard time trying to jump anybody. But look, UCF is sitting right there. And if they pull off another one in the Big 12, they jump into a host spot and knock you out. Duke, Florida State, the same thing. I mean, those are the teams. And you got Tennessee still sitting right there for the SEC. I think all of those teams they're one big win, probably needing a semi to maybe finals in their conference tournaments. But with you between the ACC and the SEC, even if you make semis, you've picked up a big win.
No, and again, traditionally the teams that finish second and third in the SEC, those are typically top 16 teams. These two teams sitting in those two positions with their success this week. Again, 2-0 there for Baylor. Look, again, 6 of Baylor's 8 losses are to Ohio State, TCU, Wake Forest, and San Diego. Like, no shame in those. The other two, I think, Arizona and Arizona State, but then beat Arizona State. Now they get this win over UCF as well. You add that to a resume, a win over Duke. What's notable in those 6 losses against top teams is how close they played them each time. Like, Baylor should be in the top 16 hunt. This is an experienced group. This team, you're never quite sure who it's going to be in the 1 through 6 spots, but they can hang at every position in every match that they play. And this was a really good 4-0 win over UCF, a match they kind of had to have to try and consolidate their spot. Now, to your point, they're not quite there yet, but a very good win for Baylor. The last one I wanted to ask you on this before we move on, what do we do with the A&M of it all? Like, this A&M team feels like they're not getting Pyjonka. Obviously, though, still with Magadan, with Papalamis, with Roddick, with the depth they have in the
Roddick's been out now, right?
yeah.
So that makes it tough. You didn't get Pajanka, and now JC's been out hurt. So, hopefully they get him back here sometime soon. But yeah, tough to make a lot out of that team. And even Perego has not been,
Yeah.
playing a lot. So
And I guess all that is to say, I think back in February we thought, well, the best version of this team, if they have everyone, maybe they can hang with the top tier. Like, maybe they could be with a TCU, a Texas, a Wake, and push them. And I don't know, because of health reasons, various different reasons, if we're going to get to see that version of Texas A&M. I'm not saying they can't go out and beat someone. Like, I still remember. I'm young enough to have a memory, Chris, that I remember their win over Harvard. I remember their wins kickoff weekend, how fun that weekend was watching that group compete. But they've taken some punches throughout the course of the SEC season in a way maybe you thought they might excel. I hate to say excel better than that. Sounds very harsh, but you thought they might be hanging top tier, and they're definitely part of the pack.
yeah, I mean, there's no doubt if it'd be a totally different situation if they were able to play their full lineup all season. They just haven't. They've had a tough time playing the same lineup at all down the stretch between JC being out, Perego being out, a few other guys missing time, never getting Pajanka. And they got Magadan late. It's just been a roller coaster for them. And no, they're just clearly not going to be right. I mean, even trying to get everybody back, it feels like too late to make a run to think, yes, we're going to get in that top, we're going to make it a top 4. It's just not there. But what is there is, hey, let's be, in that 4 through 16 grouping that these guys are talking about. Let's be at the top of that, let's make a run to finish in the top of that grouping, which means make the final site. Absolutely possible for this team. I think, the big thing that I look at right now, because we've talked about it so much, there are a clear top 3, when you start looking at the battle for a top 16 host spot, you want to avoid 14, 15, 16 because those three teams are going to visit the top three on the second weekend to make the final site. So, if at all possible, there is a huge difference between finishing 13 and 14, and you want to be 13 and draw whoever the heck is four and not Texas or TCU.
Yeah, no, very well said. Just to quick, I know we mentioned the Duke part. It's been such a brutal season for Duke. Again, it's a Duke team because of the era we are now in, all the social media noise, which I'm just so done with. Like, you're just picking on one group. It's just not cool. I don't even want to give it any more breath than that. It's so stupid. Boy, that Cal match. What a great win for Cal. A win they kind of continue to need to consolidate their place because as many wins like this now, this one, the win over Virginia that they've picked up, it still feels like we've only seen them play like 5 of these types of matches all season long. It just feels like they're a little light in that category. It's a great win for them at home. Boy, that's a tough loss for Duke. I'll tell you what, there was no one you would want in that scenario, 3-all, one set on the line, than Connor Krug in terms of level of play for them this season and to do it without Cooper. But, yeah, it's been really tough for Duke. And, boy, I'll tell you what, setting up for maybe the greatest comeback story in college tennis history if that team can play to their potential come the postseason, because there's still plenty of potential with that group as well. But those were all the teams, again, making significant top 16 moves in either direction over the past weekend. Chris, I want to move on from them to the team in the top tier. I think we've spent the least amount of time talking about this season. Under normal circumstances, you look at the resume put together by Texas, a Texas team that after wins this weekend, 4-1 over A&M, 4-1 over Oklahoma, they moved to 12-0 in conference play. They've clinched the SEC regular season title. They're 21-3 overall. Like, this team on paper is awesome. And you look at some of the numbers for this team in dual match play. Lagu has been as promised. He's 16-2 overall in dual match play, 10-0 in conference play. PY has had probably his best season in his final season on the job. He's 15-1 in dual match play. He's won 5 in a row. 5 consecutive decisions. You've got, obviously, Ojakar, still 8-0, though we haven't seen him in a while. That's given run for Erickson to get matches. He's 11-4. Lucas Brown, 13-3. Obviously, Jonah, Gorsny, they've gotten plenty of run. All these guys are match tough. Now, it is worth noting, despite the top-line record, 40-20 in double sets, they've still played around, searching for doubles pairings. I think they've played 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 different pairings so far this season. Part of that, obviously, no Ojakar. I don't know, like, this team is really good. I just feel like, I don't know. We just haven't talked about them, Chris. This is your moment. Let's talk Texas. That's great analysis by me, by the way. I don't know. They're very good. Why hasn't it hit the way you feel like it should? Is it just because Wake is 32-0?
Yeah, I think in large part it's because we've said all year there and we've continued to say, hey, we got these teams as the top 3 teams, and Texas has just kind of been, after losing that second match to TCU, they've just been kind of the third team. And and when Wake and TCU aren't losing, they're not getting anywhere. And I think on top of that, it's kind of funny because you call out some of those numbers, and they've got some very gaudy, super impressive
Well,
numbers.
Timo
I
dusts
was say
people.
that's where I'm going to
Yeah,
start. You call out Timo. He's got 2 losses. What is he? 16?
16-2.
16-2. And I would honestly say that I'm just sort of in watching, I'm still sort of like, like, he lost to Hodar. He lost the match I watched to JPJ. That's obviously his 2 losses,
Yeah,
right?
but he also smoked JPJ.
Oh, he destroyed him the first time around,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But it's like, but since then, in just the same way where, like, we haven't been talking about Texas, you're like, he's won all the matches that he's supposed to win, loses those 2, and you're just like, is he? And he's
All right.
played
Can I
some blue setters.
I apologize for interrupting, but just to push back, because I have it in front of me, just to look at the Lagu score lines, just to make the case. Papalamas, 2-3. He's been pretty good this year. I think
Penslin.
we'd
Give me the Penslin line.
No, I think we'd agree Connor Thompson's been pretty good. 3-3. Penslin, 2-5. Baroon, 2-6. Planishek, 1-4. Like,
Yeah,
what are you
that's
talking
the
about?
Planinja. No, I'm just saying it's kind of that's why we haven't been talking though, is because it's been like in the very biggest moments, right? That we're only almost talking about them against those other top two teams because we already just have them in a tier above everybody else. And there's just after losing the last match to TCU, we there just hasn't been a lot to talk about. So I think they're very it's how are you that good and number three in the nation and under the radar? But they kind of are
Hmm.
just because the talk's all 32-0 Wake and then some TCU and they're getting to sneak by, but they're ridiculously good.
Well, I think it's because we have less certainty in who they're going to be. And look, they've played 2-4-3 matches in conference play. 4-3 they beat Mississippi State. 4-3 they beat LSU, and I think the LSU was not 4-3 at clinch.
It was
But
clinched earlier. Yeah.
yeah, but that's it. Everything else has been fairly lopsided. I think why we still feel uncertain is that again, not saying Jonah Braswell's had a bad season, but it feels like I mean, first of all, he played 2-7, like the 7-6 Silas match. He wins that match. The entire
No,
narrative of the season
he's
is
okay. The
different.
guy
Yeah.
that you're going to get to next is the one that's been on the
Well, no.
disappointing.
What I was gonna say is more than anything, we still don't know if. What I was gonna say is we know it's gonna be Braswell at 4. We still don't know because of injury if it's going to be Ojakar Erickson, if it's going to be Ojakar Brown, if it's going to be Erickson Brown. Like, what are they going to do? We don't know because we haven't seen a lot of repetitions with Ojakar. I'm still not 100% certain what doubles they're going to roll out there because they have still been tinkering all season long, kind of looking for the right pairings. I know this team is really good. They're good everywhere. Again, there's no just easy spot where you go, yep, we're picking that one off. It is interesting because we know what Wake Forest is going to look like. And they've, again, regardless of Dostanic or not, we know what that team looks like. Even though we haven't seen Vivez, we know now much more so that for TCU it's going to be, okay, PJ, Vivez, Maxted, Cooper, and then Pederico has played his way in. We know the doubles with him and Chan. That's going to be their third doubles team. PJ Westendike at 2, Vivez, Louis at 1, assuming everyone's healthy, a big assumption. I just still have some lineup questions for Texas. They're really good. I guess that's the only difference. That's why they hold at 3.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't care. The bottom three, as I will call it, between Ojakar Erickson and Lucas Brown, I haven't seen enough of a distinction to say, oh, if there's no Ojakar, they're in trouble because he's clearly better than the other two or better than one of them. To me, you can take the three, and as long as you've got two really healthy, good to go, I think they're fine. Where I was going to go is really the guy, and I don't have the stats in front of me, so you have to tell me. The guy to me that's been the most disappointing here down the stretch is Seb Gorsny in singles, that is. And I don't know what his record is, but I've seen him. I watched him lose to Palovich at Arkansas. I've seen him lose some matches and be down in some matches. He hasn't finished great. Also, a guy that tends to be prone with a back and some things. So who knows how he's feeling? But
12-7 overall, 9-7 at the 2 spot.
yeah, that's compared to the rest of those
No,
numbers,
for
right?
sure.
Relatively worse. So I'm with you. I think really the biggest parts to me in that lineup when it comes down to, hey, let's get the NCAA tournament time, it's doubles and it's Seb Gorsny. I don't, you can interchange those guys at the bottom. We know PY and Team are going to be great. Yeah, you can have a little question about Jonah maybe, but it's Gorsny and doubles for me and interchange those bottom 3 and 5 and 6 and it doesn't matter.
I was talking to someone once about Seb, and the way they described it is there's nothing Seb likes more in life than to be the guy who gets to cut the other team's throat. And that's why I honestly wanted to put this here because you're right. By the number 9-7 at 2, 4-3 over his last 10, 3 meaning unfinished in that last category. Like he has been the relative struggle spot. Did you see that it was him this weekend who clinched the conference championship for the regular season title over Texas A&M? And it was just like, oh, postseason Seb. Like, I forgot that that's a different guy, as we saw last year when he clinches that national championship. I'm just saying, like, this team is really good. And I just feel like we haven't given them the props they deserve. Obviously, Timo's been unreal. PY, unreal. This team does have real depth. I'd point out Oshakar's 8-0 in dual match play. I do think having his presence, if it's the best version of him, could potentially be a swing piece for Texas with everyone else now finding their rhythm. I don't know. I felt like we needed to talk some
No, yeah,
Texas.
we haven't talked about them,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you right now, I would go on the record and say I'm very confident that whether it was today or whether it's at the time we make our tourney picks, we're both going to have them in the semifinals.
Let me
Right?
just do this
They're going to
quickly.
be in the top four.
Let me just do this quickly because to prove I'm still me. Spiz versus Timo.
I mean, we saw the practice set last year, right?
All right, so you're taking Timo, one out. Gorsny versus Micah.
Take Micah.
Okay, 1-1. GA versus PY.
Uh, Gosh, that's like a ridiculous like this year's
Yeah,
PY.
this year's PY.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen GA playing. Last year, I would have taken GA. This year, I mean, I'm not betting against this year's PY against anybody.
All right, so he's taking PY. So 2-1 this year's team. This is where it starts to get fun because you never were sure who was going to play 4, 5, 6 for either of these teams. We'll go Jonah versus who played 4 in the championship match. Um, wow, my
Was
brain
it?
is broken.
It wasn't Waldeeb, was it? Was
Was
it?
it Waldeep? We'll go with Siem because he's earned that benefit. Oh, no, you know who it was? Doves, PY. That's why it's because we had already mentioned him, so I'm going to give us a pass. So
Uh,
last year's PY at 4 versus this year's Jonah. That's the clinching match. That's where it's coming down to.
I mean, last year's PY, no, I'm not taking him.
So you're taking this year's Jonah, so it's 3-1 this year's team. So now it comes down to 5 and 6. We'll go with what they win the final. Last year's Jonah versus this year. We'll go Erickson because that's who we've seen more.
Yeah, I'd take last year's Jonah.
Okay, 3-2. This year's Lucas versus last year's Cleve.
Cleve.
All right, 3-all. Who wins doubles?
That's I. I think I have to go last. I mean, you got
All
Cleve.
right, a comeback from behind. That was worth the segment, folks. That was for my
You can't bet
entertainment.
against a team with Cleve Harper. Come on.
All right, he's going 4-3 last year's team. I too will go 4-3 last year's team just to stir the pot a little bit. But I am very fond of this year's Texas team, and again, they're very much in that tier one amongst those top 3 teams with TCU and Wake Forest. Even though I do feel like we spent some less time talking about them, but hopefully we made up for it there. All right, let me give you some other fun storylines to follow from the weekend, Chris. We'll rapid fire through them. Let's start with the Ivy League drama. Columbia 4-0 over Yale. Nothing dramatic about that. Harvard 5-2 over Penn. Nothing dramatic about that. Princeton 4-3 over Harvard. Markovitz clinching over freshman Mitchell Lee 6-4 in the third at 6. We knew this Princeton team had some talent. They had 2 of their top 2 players, obviously both in the NCAA singles draw back in the fall. You know, they lost at the number 1 spot. And by the way, Daniel Milovsky, his senior season is an unbelievable season. Probably haven't spent enough time singing his praises, how good he's been elevated in that top spot. He gets an impressive win there over Nadunjian. God, I missed his name. In Shaspe, a big win over the freshman Pravera at 2. Again, for Princeton, the big thing was they get doubles, they get 2, they get 4, they get the clinch at 6. It's a massive win for a Princeton team that, look, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament, no doubt about that. It's a tough hit for Harvard, and their top 16 push puts even more pressure on that Columbia match.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I haven't even run. I didn't run the what if. I don't know that. I don't know that that's enough to get them in because they're without the conference tournament. It's just brutal for them. That knocks them out of that top 16 chance, and they're sitting at 18 in the projected this week right
They have
now.
Columbia and Cornell left. And they have Yale and Brown, but Columbia and Cornell are the big points.
Yeah, I mean, the Columbia one would almost undoubtedly put them there now. And then they're back in that waiting game of, okay, which of those teams right behind me are going to do something in their conference tournament?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Andrew Rube's getting on the phone going, get rid of the stupid ECAC and have a conference tournament, damn it. I mean, they just every year we have this conversation. I don't understand. For a bunch of people that are supposed to be really smart, they haven't figured this out. That being the Ivy League. I'm not talking about Harvard. I'm talking about the Ivy League in general.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Everybody in the in the nation's playing a conference tournament, and in tennis, there's only one reason for it, and that's to help get you in the tournament here.
Yeah, and again, Princeton 19-6. We talked about it early in the year. What a season it's been for the Ivy League. Obviously, you've got Cornell sitting at 37 right now. Princeton sitting at 30. Obviously, Harvard all the way up, still at 16 for the moment. Cornell sitting at Columbia sitting at 10. But yeah, that one hurt Harvard. A Harvard team that I still think the best version of them, if they're going on the road for regional, again, 14 through 16 seed, you better be ready to bring your best tennis at home because that Harvard team is going to push you. But yeah, massive win for Princeton. That was a tough loss, certainly for Harvard, as we got a little Ivy League drama this weekend. Storyline number two, we have to talk about it because certainly when we came out of last season, one of the matches you and I will always remember was Pacific's victory over San Diego. Well, Chris, guess what? Pacific did it again. 4-3. They knock off Pepperdine, clinched at the number 2 spot with a 6-3 in the third set victory. You had 3 matches in this one go the distance. Pacific grabbing the doubles point with wins at the 2 and 3 spot. That, of course, ultimately making the difference. For what it's worth, San Diego got its revenge. I said I was going to talk about that match when it happened. San Diego 4-0 over Pacific. I am sure no team was more prepared for a match this season than the San Diego men were for that specific rematch. But man, again, that is a brutal weekend for Pacific to have to play. Pepperdine and San Diego in the same stretch, and to come out of that weekend 1-1, you look for Pacific now, Chris, in the projected rankings for
49 now.
49
They're
on
back
their
in the
website.
same boat they were in last year. They're in the hunt. They're right.
Yeah.
This might be the exact number they were at last year, but they were right in this same position going, holy cow. And I got a phone call from Robin Goodman and like, what do we need to do? Right. Because it's like, I didn't expect to be here and here we are. I didn't get the call this year because I'm assuming he learned how to use all the tools at his disposal now. And he knows how to figure out what to do. But yeah, they are literally a decent match away from putting themselves in the NCAA field.
No, it's so impressive. And again, like we saw it in the fall, we saw inklings of it in the fall, but yeah, to come out and beat this Pepperdine team, a Pepperdine team that is still extraordinarily young, but has put up a lot of good wins here in 2025. This does knock them out probably of any sort of top 16 aspirations, even with a win over San Diego in the conference tournament. Um, but yeah, what a win for Pacific. Just again, you do something once, you have our attention. You do something twice, you got something cooking. So certainly, again, had to give a shout out to a tough loss for Coach Schachterly and the Waves, but a fantastic victory for Pacific. Next up, Big Ten sweeps, Chris. Ohio State sweeping the LA teams, 4 over USC, 4 over UCLA. And then, here's the more surprising sweeps. Michigan State. They not only beat Illinois, each of them pick up 4-0 victories over the Illini. For Michigan, again, to have Gavin Young back in the lineup, I still don't know what a healthy version of Michigan looks like. I still don't know what a healthy version of Michigan State looks like either, but again, the team's getting sweeps over both Illinois and Northwestern here this weekend. Obviously, it feels like the Buckeyes are starting to find something now for that team to get back-to-back 4-3 victories on the road over the Wolverines and Spartans last weekend to parlay that into just more dominance at home. What caught your eye most of these Big Ten sweeps, Chris?
I mean, I think the Ohio State, 4-0 sweep of both of the West Coast teams. We had talked about that. Was it going to be over under 2.5 points, or 3.5 points, whatever, however we wanted to number it. It didn't matter. It was 0. So that was very, very impressive for them, and slightly disappointing, I think, on the side of the West Coast teams not being able to pick up anything there. Ohio State's they're doing their thing at home. They're really good. And I'm just interested to see again how they're gonna hang when we get into tournament time with these top teams. But they've shown that even when they get pushed, whether it's the Michigan and the Michigan State weekend where they were pushed to the brink and both and win it against, not top 15 teams, if you will. Or if it's, a weekend like this where they just demolish people, they're either going to take it easy or they just find a way and they still get it done. I think they're just really impressive right now to me.
I don't think either Michigan nor Michigan State has a pathway to the top 16. Again, add it to the depth conversation. And honestly, maybe it's 4 through like 24 on the ITA rankings of teams that just on the right day they're going to beat you 4-0. You're going to have a performance from Ozond. You're going to have Gavin Young, Will Cooksey, another one of those seniors who's playing his absolute best tennis in his final season on the job. Quick trivia question for you, Chris Halioris. Jack Anthrop has played 62 career dual matches according to my calculations. What's his record?
That 62 completed matches?
62 completed matches, thank you.
62 completed matches. Is he a junior right now?
Redshirt junior.
So I don't know what he did freshman year. I'm gonna say I'll say he's lost. I'm gonna go 57-5.
Price is Right rules. Chris Halioris, step on up. You're our next contestant. 58-4. Which, by the way, like, what are we doing? That's one of those numbers. That's just like smile on the face. I saw the graphic on Twitter. He's a scholar athlete according to the Ohio State men's Twitter feed as well. So shout out to him. 58-4. Like, what are we doing? Again, it's just like 3 years of this.
And yet you didn't put him on the first team.
No, they went from a JJ to a Jack. They were like, well, we need someone to fill the Tracy spot. And Jack's like, no, we don't. I'm right here. Don't worry. I'm next. It's just ridiculous. 18-1 now overall. He's on his last 11. Like, just
And more remarkable to me,
and I don't regret the pick. But go ahead.
Is that he's figured that out after, by all accounts, a miserable fall. I mean, it was just not. It wasn't good, and it wasn't even just. I mean, seeing some of what he was doing outside of even his college events, the form wasn't there in the fall. And it's like we got to January and all of a sudden, hey, I'm here, guys. I'm ready to go. Forget the fall. It's go time. And he's been great.
I think the most you ever made fun of me is when that's not true. But the most you've ever made fun of me on mic is when I came out of the 2022 National Indoors and TCU won that National Indoors. And I believe my take was, no, I'm telling you, J.J. Tracy at 4 is the most outstanding player. Like, it was just a point on the board always. And you're like, that just, no. And that's Anthrop. It's like, yeah, he might be the guy right now. It's just like it's win after win after win. And, again, streaks at 11. We had a 37-match win streak last year. I'm just saying you can't get to 37 without getting to 11. So just wanted to put that number on the board. But no, again, big weekend for Michigan, big weekend for Michigan State, big weekend for Ohio State, each of them earning weekend sweeps. So you still got 2 weekends of Big Ten play remaining, but just something to keep an eye on. And then last but not least, we have a 32-0 team. By the way, on the women's side, FAU is 14-0.
14-0, yeah.
Jay made a great joke last night. He goes, I'm pretty sure Wake Forest was 14-0 before indoors. And, he's probably right. But Wake Forest is 32-0. It's not that they had a notable weekend. 4-1 over SMU, 4-0 over Boston College, Longwood, and Coastal Carolina. But 32-0, man. Like, we don't get to see when was the last time a team was 17-0, let alone 32-0? A lot of big play ahead. They've got NC State this Saturday, latest push of that record, and certainly we have seen them pushed 4-3 by TCU, by Texas, by Ohio State this season. Chris, do you think we get to Stonich?
This weekend? Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, he lost, I think, first round this week. So depending on, I don't know if I didn't look ahead of time to go see if he was signed up for another tournament next week or not. I can do that here in a moment, but honestly, I don't think, it would be great. It would be nice to go undefeated. Do I think that Tony's hung up on, hey, sure, even with the Virginia
he might even want a loss.
Maybe, but I don't think if his mind is much more set on let's figure out how to win the national championship. And if we take a loss on the way to getting there, I don't really care. And so, given his guys even playing time, they're going to be the number one team. Getting PT at a spot above, playing better players, I don't think it hurts. So I don't know if we'll see Stubb. I think it does just depend on whether he's out for another tournament, somewhere out west or south or wherever. I guess I don't know. Was he in Sarasota this week? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, this week was Sarasota.
Yeah. So is it Tallahassee next week or the week after?
So. I would really like if someone went to Luca Pau and Jules Leroux and were like, "Hey, you're playing for the all best team first team spot." Like, just so you know, some added, like, just so you know, they're like,
You
do you
have to
want?
play because this
Yeah,
is on the line.
yeah. Do you want to be on the College Tennis Ranks website for when people look at the archive of what was the best lineup first team in 2025? Do you want that number first team spot to be you? Go get a win this weekend.
They're specifically putting an asterisk out there that you're not included because you didn't play enough. But
Yeah.
I don't see him
Oh,
signing
are
up.
we doing NBA rules where I think they have a 62 game minimum where it's like you have to play at least or whatever 60 game minimum to of course 65 to qualify for the year end awards? Are we doing like a 3/4 rule?
No, I don't
12
think.
matches? No, we'll worry about that later. But yeah, 32-0 is 32-0. I've asked this I'm just going to keep reiterating this, Chris. Hopefully the lesson has stuck. Who was the last undefeated team?
2013 UVA.
Can you name the lineup from that team in the national championship?
I mean, come on, you made me say Virginia. There's not a chance in hell I'm quoting
Okay.
some lineup that had to
All right.
include
All right.
Shane and Damajan
Ready?
and yeah.
I stumbled through last year's Texas lineup in the final, but watch this. Number one singles, obvious. Jameer Jenkins over Denis Novikov in the final. Number two singles, obviously. Marcos Giron over Alex Damajan at that number two spot. Number three, the net clinch, the foot touch, Mitchell Frank, Adrian Puget. Number four is where it gets a little dicey. I forget who played for. This is always the spot I was like, I'm never sure who this guy is. It's not Takushian, but it might be Takushian. For UCLA, he gets a win over Steislinger. Number 5, Justin Shane, win over Clay Thompson. 6, Caruso gets a win over Julian Uruguin. Still could do that, but some of the other stuff in my life I lack. Anyways, that's your lineup, Chris. Ryan Shane on the bench in the final. 2 years later, NCAA singles champion. Gotta love college tennis, folks. Anyways, there's your history lesson for the day. Let's move on to NCAA Bubble Watch, better known as the section where, Chris, it's time to just let you cook. I have a couple of teams I threw your way that are sitting right on that bubble right now. And again, typically that cutoff spot for at-large or non-conference champion teams, somewhere between 42, 45 in the rankings. Right now, Nebraska, they're sitting at 38. They got a big win over Oregon 4-3, but fell 4-3 to Washington, a Washington team that's now sitting at 40, 13-6 overall in the year. They got wins over Wisconsin and Nebraska. Let's start with those two Big Ten teams, Chris. Left for Nebraska, at Wisconsin, USC and UCLA at home. Typical Big Ten late season matchup. And then the Big Ten tournament. For Washington, they've got at Purdue, at Indiana, Northwestern Illinois at home, then the Big Ten tournament. Give me the case for these two Big Ten teams. How are they feeling?
Yeah, well, the problem that Nebraska's got right now is just like we have in the top 16 battle with some teams that own a lot of tiebreakers over other teams. Nebraska at this point loses tiebreakers to Cornell, to Washington, and to Boise State. So that's not a really good feeling if you're Nebraska. They're still inside the cut line right now, but being on the losing end of every one of those tiebreakers doesn't make you feel good. And I mean, they've got to beat Wisconsin. I don't know if they can get away with going 0-2 against the two against USC and UCLA. They may need one of those matches. I'm just not, it's really tight. I think if they beat Wisconsin and they beat one of those teams, they're locked. If they lose both of those teams, now it gets a little bit questionable. So if I'm them, I'm going, hey, let's go 2-1 in those matches. We're in.
By the way, this is so stupid. Dennis McTyron played for UCLA. It just dawned upon me. So my apologies to Dennis. Yeah, look, that was really going to be the crux of my question. That at Wisconsin match is going to be tough, and that's a ranked win, by the way. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I think, look, and by the way, USC, UCLA haven't played indoor tennis in a really long time. I bet that match is probably indoors. Like, actually, mid
It's
to
like
late
not unless
April.
it's rain. I mean,
Yeah, but mid to late April in Lincoln, not impossible that they have rain, Chris Halioris. And so I am fascinated by this Nebraska team. Look, this Nebraska team has a Michigan win. That will help them certainly in terms of boosting up their ranking. But yeah, you mentioned those tie breaks. Big Ten tournament's going to be interesting because, again, they'll be on the bubble. Washington will be on the bubble. Michigan State, Illinois all feel like, well, maybe if we can find a way to beat one of you, beat Ohio State as well, maybe there's a late chase to a top 16 seed. Yeah, I'm fascinated by both these teams. What about Washington?
The good news, by the way, for all those Big Ten teams is because they're playing their tournament later than almost everybody else
Yeah,
is.
they know.
They're going to know exactly. They're going to know where they're at for the most. There might be maybe a weird scenario or two because of some of the other late conferences that aren't the big ones that a team might have an impact, a secondary impact on someone's win or loss opponent to play. But for the most part, they're going to know. For Washington, who does Washington have left?
Washington at Purdue, at Indiana, Northwestern, Illinois.
I mean, I like their prospects much better. They should not lose. Look, they should not lose to Indiana. Purdue is dangerous.
Yeah.
I think that's the one you definitely have to watch out there. They shouldn't lose to Northwestern. The Illinois situation is just getting all the more weird right now. I don't know what's going to happen there.
But they also just, by the way, had Emerson Jones' brother, Hayden Jones. Hayden Jones, who played in the ITF Junior Tour Finals last year, just committed to Illinois. So it's like, yeah, it's weird, but now they just landed another massive recruit.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. Yeah,
no, just to point out.
Yeah, they're gonna get the players. It's just they've had guys in and out, and all of a sudden this weekend in the Michigan State match, Gazauskas comes back. Like, I'm not going to get into what happened there, but nobody saw that coming, including all the other guys on the team. So there's it's just an odd situation there right now. And so I think I think they're vulnerable. That'll be a good match with Washington, but I like their odds of being able to hold their spot. I think it's a little easier path probably right now than Nebraska has, who's probably going to have to come up with a win. Although, when you look at the teams chasing just outside the cut line, it's tough to make big arguments because you got teams like Penn and the Ivy, who just, again, no conference tournament. North Carolina, who doesn't figure to be picking up any big wins in an ACC tournament. They're struggling in the ACC. Pacific, who only just got there over the win over Pepperdine, and unless they knock off a San Diego or a Pepperdine again, doesn't seem likely. It's tough to find those teams that you think could get in there. Like Purdue might legitimately be the next one down there, and they're just several points out. So it's tough. I think there's still a really good shot for those teams, even if they don't. Like Nebraska could still get in with just winning one of those three matches, but they can't just do nothing in the Big Ten tournament either.
So I'm going to give you three more teams and their schedule, and you tell me if you think they're in or not. Number 39, Cornell. They've got at Penn, at Harvard.
I think they're in.
Arkansas, currently number 41. They've got at Vandy, at Kentucky, at Xavier. Shout out to making sure you're good on the 500 rule, and the SEC tournament.
I think they're in, but boy, are they in a precarious spot. But they should be good. I mean, their point total right now is just, even though they're down there, they're too good on points right now, so they can't fall out.
All right. Arizona State. They knocked out by UCF win over BYU this weekend. They've got Arizona and the Big 12 tournament. They're 37.
Yeah, they're in.
Okay.
No
I
way
like to hear it. All right, so 37, you're good. It's Nebraska down where things start to get leaky. That's your bubble watch. Anything else you got for us, Professor?
No, I mean, I think the teams that you didn't bring up that I'm a little more curious to see down the stretch here are below Arkansas right now. So teams like Georgia Tech, Middle Tennessee, UC Irvine, that's where it gets really, really questionable to me. Those are the teams I want to watch.
I want to give a shout out to Cedric Kaufman at Kentucky. They were 12-10 coming into the week, flirting with that 500 rule because they've got Oklahoma, Arkansas at home, then the SEC tournament. Doubleheader against Eastern Illinois. They go 2-0 on Tuesday. They're not going to have to worry about the 500 rule anymore. Folks, that's the rule. You have to know to coach around it. That's a job well done. We applaud a job well done by a coach logistically, and so that's not sarcasm. It's like you got to call it out. It's like, hey, coaches, just in case you forgot, like, Keep that date open, particularly in the era of conference play. And why keep that date open? Because all of you should be playing everyone in the conference. Like, just don't leave points on the table. Leave dates on the table for things like that. Shout out Cedric Kaufman. A job well done. All right, Chris, in terms of the other results I've got for you on the week, Stanford and Cal sweeping the other half of the North Carolina Tobacco Road as they get the wins over UNC, 4-0 Virginia, good wins over Clemson, Georgia Tech, particularly given Hodar was off making the semifinals of a challenger. Fun SEC matches, Tennessee 4-3 over Florida 4-3 over Georgia, Alabama 4-3 over Auburn. You had Arizona, good win over BYU 4-0. USF continues a sneaky great season. They're in the top 30. Shout out the job Coach Fisher's done this year. 5-2 win for them over Middle Tennessee. Air Force over New Mexico 4-3. I almost wore my Air Force polo tonight, but I wanted to show off the new Cracked Rackets merch instead. You got anything else for me, Chris Halioris? Anything we've missed from the week? Any thoughts on these other results?
Oh, not on the other results, no.
All right, fair enough. It is worth noting we had 2 more matches tonight. I didn't want to miss them, so we're going to refresh my week ahead tab here, looking at them. TCU 4-0 over SMU. Chris, I got one more for you. You ready for one more?
I'm ready.
UCSB 4-3 over Pepperdine.
No way. I saw that match. Did they really?
Headline from Pepperdine. We're reading it live. And I want to say, shout out to the Pepperdine SIDs. They do such a good job. I apologize if it's one SID for both programs. They do a really good job. This is a great headline because this is what you're looking for when you're doing a show live. We're live doing this. This is fun. Headline: Match slips away from Waves against UC Santa Barbara. Pepperdine men's tennis team took a 3-2 lead, yet the Gauchos came back to win 2 3-set matches to hand the Waves a 4-3 home loss on Wednesday afternoon. Clinched at the 1 spot by Gianluca Brunkaus, 6-4 in the third over Ed Winter.
Wow.
Pepperdine won doubles. They got straight set wins at 5 and 6. Knocked out straight sets at 3 and 4. 3 sets at 1 and 2. Wow.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah.
Wait, so where's UCSB now in the rankings?
Well, I mean, they were sitting at, I mean, they were already sitting like 37 for the in the NCAA projection, so they're going to be obviously even higher. That probably bumps them, we could go to the what if, but that probably bumps them into lower 30 range.
Do you think they're good now? I mean, they were probably already good.
They're a lock.
All right. Bravo.
To your point, hats off to Coach Schachterly's SID, because after all their great social media content, I had to ask him. I was like, I actually just assumed in this day and age of all the young folks, and I just sarcastically say all the young folks that know how to use Instagram because the old folks like me don't. I see it if it's on Twitter. If it's on Instagram, you got to text me with it, and then if I try to go find it, I probably still don't. So I'll just look at the picture in my text. I asked him, I said, man, do you have a student? You got a student doing this? That's awesome. And he says, no, they've got a full-time SID. And he said the SID is so bought into everything. He told me he's read his favorite tennis book a handful of summers to improve his tennis writing. He's just, yeah, his SID is in. So yeah, shout out to Coach Schachterly and the Waves and the SID.
No, exceptionally done. Well, all right, Chris, that's everything from the last week. Before we preview the final week for some of the regular season, let's take a quick look. I know we've done some of this already at the race for the top 8 seeds, race for the top 16. I'm going to give you my personal rankings, which I know aren't too far off from yours. We're going to have the same top 10 teams, just a matter of order. You tell me if they've clinched a top 8 or a top 16 seed yet. You ready?
Okay.
All right, Wake Forest.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Again, every time you have the chance for the joke of jokes. I keep waiting for you to – no, dumb question. TCU.
Well, yeah, top 8.
Texas.
Top 8.
NC State.
Top 8.
And they're my number 4 right now. Do you still have Ohio State ahead of them?
I do.
Okay, fair enough. Ohio State's my 5. Have they locked?
Yeah, they should be a lock for a top 8.
Okay, so we have 5 locks for our top 8 seeds going into these final few weeks of the regular season and conference tournament play. Is Virginia, number 6 in my rankings, a top 8 lock?
I don't know if I'd say a lock. I will say that right now, Virginia and San Diego look just from a points perspective, they look really good. I still won't lock them, but boy, it would take a lot for them to fall out right now because even for both of them at 6 and 7, you know, they'd have to have three teams jump up and knock them down, and it's just there's way too many points there. I don't see how that could possibly happen. So I would say like they're like 90% locked.
No, I like that. That's a good question. San Diego, 8 on my list right now. Good to know them and Virginia, the leaders in the clubhouse for 2 of those final 3 spots. I have Columbia 7 on my rankings. I imagine you also have them inside your top 8, but they're 10 in the ITA rankings, and with the Harvard loss, is there enough left on the board for them to get to top 8, Chris?
Um, yes, I mean look, everything from it's really right now if you say Virginia, San Diego are probably like 90% top 8 locks, you're battling for the last spot,
Mm-hmm.
for the 8th spot, which I don't know, is that a battle you want to win? Like you're trying to get I mean, yes, you would love to host the 9 seed
Hell yeah, you want to
weekend,
win it.
but do you really want Wake Forest in the first match at the final?
Yeah, you'll
Like,
take the extra home match.
I mean, but yeah, the extra home match would absolutely be good. Yeah, I think it's an all-out war for that 8th and final spot right now. And yes, Columbia could still get there, I think.
Okay. Obviously, I have Stanford 9, Cal 10. Um, Again, I think we agree on the top 10 teams. I think we'd agree all of those 10 teams locks to be top 16. Let's move beyond that now to the next tier. I have Arizona at 11. Would you call them a lock?
Locked.
I have Baylor at 12. Would you call them a lock?
Uh, who could they possibly lose? What do they have left? Do they have anything
They
left?
have TCU left, regular season matchup, and I think that's it. I have it in front of me, though. They have TCU and Texas Tech.
Okay, so they're not going. Yeah, I'm still not going to say they're a lock.
All
Because
right.
there's too many things that could happen, but I mean, they should be good barring a bad loss, but no, they're not locked.
Mississippi State.
They're a lock.
So there you have 12 locks. I'm going to assume South Carolina, Texas A&M because we talked about them earlier. They are not locks, but I have them as my leaders in the clubhouse for 14 and 15. And then, as we mentioned, that race for 16, Florida State, Duke, UCF, Harvard. Those are all top 16 quality teams. Who's going to box out and get that
Tennessee, did
final
you leave
spot?
Tennessee out?
And Tennessee as well. I did leave them out. But
I'm
yeah, they
getting
absolutely have a shot to it. Fascinating spot where things stand with, again, busy weekends ahead. And with that in mind, Chris, our final weekend of cross court casts ahead. It's going to be a fun one. Let's start with the granddaddy of them all on Saturday, a match I'm devastated that we are not currently covering because I'm doing Friday, Sunday for the ACC. Wake Forest at NC State. If that's not your ACC match of the weekend, Cal at Stanford is. That might be a Saturday match as well. We might just have to do an impromptu Saturday, Chris. Well, we might have to text Westoff, and you might have. You know what? In order to do
the
it,
problem is I have Big 12.
no, I think I have Big 12 on Saturday.
I think you're wrong.
Uh, you know what? This is good. I hope there's confusion. I think you might have Saturday.
Maybe that's why I didn't get the Big 12 graphic, but I certainly had
Yeah.
it on my calendar.
No, if that's the case, maybe we do an impromptu ACC if possible. I don't know. That's a Dalton question. Um, Wake Forest at NC State, Cal at Stanford. I mean, both are fucking fascinating. Like they're both such good matches. Wake Forest at NC State is an old-fashioned brawl. Cal at Stanford, just again, two teams who go about it a little bit differently, and just again seeing a clash of those two energies in action. I mean, they're both excellent. Let's start with the
Only
top
we could
dogs.
see a match at Stanford.
Yeah, well, okay, so then never mind. I forgot that they don't have the cameras this year. That's a very good point. So then Wake at NC State, Chris. Who you got and why?
I mean, how do you bet against the undefeated team? I mean,
They've been pushed. They've
I know,
played
oh,
four
they've
threes.
absolutely been pushed. Look, Charlie Robertson's going to be coming from Sarasota. I assume he lost that match to Spiz
You want to
today.
hear something crazy?
First set break.
Spiz was the 1 seed. Like This time last year, we were talking about him in the guy conversation. He's the one, like he's top 125 in the live rankings, and like he's the third highest ranked guy from last year's class. It's like I don't know, but Fernley and Nishesh are ahead of him. It's like what?
Yeah, yeah. And like I saw that match and I saw Robertson went to a breaker and lost it in the first. I assume he lost the match.
Yeah,
So
he did. Elliott won it,
okay, he should be back
6-1.
and ready to go. Yeah, I mean, look, I love what NC State's doing and I think I still think I would pick them on a home court. I probably take them against anybody outside the top three. I just don't know about taking them. I still think that top three is hard to pick against anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Cal at Stanford. Obviously, that's an elimination top eight match, like barring a winning of a conference tournament. But those are 9 and 10, 8 and 9 in the rankings right now. Who you got?
I think you have to take again in matches this close. I think you go with the home team. Now, there's virtually zero travel involved here, so it's not like you have that going on, but it still is, a home court advantage, if you will. Uh, it just pains me to have to pick Stanford just because they, how up and down and whatnot they've been. Cal's just been great, and I think it's a great story, but I still take Stanford.
Even if there's no Banerjee?
And Cal does. I mean, they did play a full complement this weekend against Duke. I don't know if there's no Banerjee, that's going to make a difference, and that might swing it towards Cal.
All right, fair enough. I'll allow you to preface it with the no Banerjee disclaimer. We'll use March Madness terms. Baylor's done everything but earn a quad one win so far here in 2025. They've got their final chance. They're at TCU. It's the third matchup of this season. This is a sneaky, frisky rivalry. Can they do it? Can they knock off what will feel like, I'm sure, a shorthanded TCU?
Yeah, can they do it? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, obviously it's a home match for TCU, so it's not like the Utah swing, but we saw TCU get pushed by BYU in Utah. So absolutely it can be done. And it might, if they manage to find a way, if there's really no Vivez, and so there's no Vivez and Maxted, uh, that doubles point's going to get, really, really tightly contested. And if Baylor manages to swing a doubles point, we could very easily be sitting here in the same situation we were with those BYU and Utah matches going, go look at that TCU score right now. Like the number two team in the nation's like dropped doubles in three or four first sets, and that could very easily happen. So I think it's very hard to pick against them at home, but with no Vivez, absolutely it can be done.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it. Princeton, fresh off the win over Harvard, can they beat Columbia at home?
Can they? Yes. Will they? I don't think so, but
Mhm.
they're very good.
Fair enough. Tennessee's got Texas A&M coming to Knoxville. Tennessee pull off the win over the Aggies.
Boy, I mean, that's the one that would put the dagger in my knocking Tennessee all year, saying they're not going to grab that time. If they win either one of these matches, they're a top 16. They're going to be in a hosting spot. I don't see it. I say it every week. I don't know how. I mean, I didn't even the Florida match. Look, Florida's not to me Texas A&M. I honestly didn't expect them to win, and they did. So props to Tennessee. I think it's tough. I'm not going to pick it. I would pick both A&M and Texas.
A&M Tennessee, a top 16 seed elimination match. So yes, have an eye on that score line. Last thing, give me the Michigan team's record. Michigan State going to USC, UCLA. I was fascinated by these trips preseason. I'm going to stay fascinated now. You give me the Michigan team's records. Give me the California team's records.
Michigan State, both of them. I want to say Michigan State goes 2-0. Michigan goes 1-1. And I don't like so which one of the Cal teams goes 0-2? Uh
Find out on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't even know how to call it because it's the same story all year. On paper, UCLA is better. In reality, USC's better. I mean, look, they played each other. USC won the match. So it's really tough to call. I just think it's going to be tough. It's also, I mean, look, we got to monitor the situation. It's the Michigan situation has been, a very fluid one with injuries all year. Still is. Don't know who's playing there. That could greatly impact it. If they're down a guy or two, they could very easily go 0-2. Michigan State, though, still trying to remain, in the hunt as best they can. They've got to go 2-0.
Yeah, all right. Well, again, fascinating weekend. All right, now I'm just going to give you matches that have all sorts of postseason implications. I just need straight winner from you. Ohio State at Illinois.
Ohio State,
Florida at South Carolina.
South Carolina,
Mississippi State at Alabama.
Mississippi State,
Penn at Columbia.
Columbia,
Princeton at Cornell.
Princeton,
Cornell at Penn.
Cornell,
Wow, no hesitation. I love this. Miami at Florida State.
Florida State,
Nebraska at Wisconsin.
Nebraska.
Washington's record at Purdue at Indiana.
uh 1-1.
Okay, this one seemed more interesting before today's result. UCSB at UC Irvine.
UCSB.
Got to go with them now. Tulsa at Memphis.
Man, such an up and down year for Coach Dorr. I'm gonna go Memphis.
All right. Kentucky's record hosting Oklahoma, Arkansas.
1-1.
Ooh. Georgia's record hosting Texas, Texas A&M.
And now, Kentucky, I'll go back. Kentucky could get the benefit with all of the wet and whatnot we've had here. Like Louisville's basically underwater. They're about an hour away. I don't know how things look there and if they can play outdoors. It would be beneficial for them to go indoors. Outdoors, I think yeah, it's a 1-1 weekend.
All right.
Back to what was the next one?
Georgia hosting Texas and A&M.
0-2.
All right. Well, folks, last weekend for the SEC, ACC, Big 12 means it's the last weekend you can tune into our cross-court cast Thursday through Sunday on ESPN Plus. Make sure you do as again. Postseason's on the horizon. All sorts of permutations, all sorts of implications, all sorts of drama on the horizon. We look forward to covering it all. Of course, Chris Halioris makes it so much easier for all of you to prepare for that drama yourselves. You got the what-if calculator, you got the projected rankings, and Chris, tell me about the newest feature you rolled out today on collegetennisranks.com.
Yeah, in the projected rankings now, there's a host map that will give you a graphical view of where it actually shows men or women. It'll show all the teams in the division, all the host sites, and all the teams that are in the tourney, and you can independently turn them on or off if you only want to see the 16 hosts or if you want to see only the tourney teams. But it's when I first put all the dots on there, I was like, oh, that's really cool. It shows you how there's like nothing in the Northwest, central of the Northwest, university wise, period. But yeah, I mean, it's a very telling picture. Most notably because I get a lot of questions as we get to this time as, hey, who can possibly go there? I'm hoping that I can maybe tie that in. Anything considered less than 400 miles by the NCAA as a drive, and they prefer that over flights. That is the goal in the algorithm for them, is to minimize the number of flights that have to be taken in the tourney. So it helps in looking at that to see which teams can possibly get there. So that was out today. In addition to that, Gruskin, you and I had a conversation during the week, and I said, it would be interesting to know this certain fact. So I did the research. 22 matches for Duke this year. How many different singles lineups have they played?
Price is Right rules?
Price is Right rules.
$1, Bob. Who's the new guy? Jim? Not Jim Carrey. Drew Carey. I'm gonna go 15. No. I'm gonna go 16. No. Hold on, Alex. You said 22 matches.
22 matches.
I saw Visser in the lineup this weekend, so
Visser's actually played a fair amount.
well, that's why they've been all over.
Five.
Price is Right rules would say inclination says go low, but I feel like 16 is going to be exactly right. So I'm going to go 16 and just roll the dice.
You were going to lose either way. The answer is 14.
It's 14. Oh, they played
14,
14 and 22
14
match.
different lineups in that time.
Okay.
That's insane. And now if you just in case you want to know, a lot less possible variations here. How many different doubles lineups have they played?
Well, for the record, that's 63% turnover, like in the lineups. I wonder if Wake Forest in their 32 matches has a higher turnover rate.
Yeah,
Um, that's going to be bothering
sure.
me all week.
Yeah,
I'm going to say they've played, wow. Well, they've actually been pretty consistent in their
they
doubles lineups.
they have
So I'm going to say they've played like 5 different teams.
10.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
10
I mean,
different doubles lineups, which is
yeah.
still a lot considering for the most part, like half the year, it's been Pedro and Winiger at one and Cooper and Petrovic at two. And still they've managed to play 10 different doubles lineups.
14 of 22. I still think Wake Forest will be higher.
Oh yeah, they will be just because they play the double headers against North Carolina Central where like six guys that don't ever play.
Well, I mean, Luca Pau, again, he hit the
He plays
cycle.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, all 6 spots. Yeah, I mean, again, look, it's a week where you've got 2 regular season conference titles on the line. Wake at NC State, Baylor at TCU. A lot of good matches across the country. Lock in, folks. We got a fantastic home stretch of the 2025 season ahead. That said, of course, a thank you to all of you who tuned in live. A thank you, of course, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, as well. Yes, we are our live Chris, but what sort of a job does he have to do?
It's a fuck of an editing job.
Day in, day out, makes everything possible. A shout out to him with that said. For the fantastic Chris Halioris to my left, our super producer Daniel Westoff, and from all of us here at Cracked Rackets, I'm your host Alex Gruskin. Chris, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.